think one of our local publications did a story on our COO, Keith Mitchell, a few months ago on him being at Lincoln Elementary teaching school. We do teach heat and cold stress classes along with energy saving tips at our senior centers in our service territory. I think if you speak with some of the seniors that attend Norman Senior Center, that they'll know Mr. Coons and some of his people that do those classes. We are looking forward to the new senior center. When we get that down here in the city, I'm confident we'll get that done and we'll be there to do our classes there. Economic development, OGE is an active and involved partner in growing our existing and recruiting employers to Norman, Oklahoma. OGE and our members are part of Norman for Good. We're here, we're part of the chamber, we're part of the Norman Economic Development Coalition. Anything good going on in Norman, OGE is a part of it and a supporter where possible. Governor Fallon touts the fact that OGE has some of the lowest energy costs in the nation, and that is true. I mentioned earlier that OGE just announced a solar farm, 10 megawatts, that's going to go online in 2018. That farm's already sold out, but it's in addition to our 2.5 megawatt farm at our Mustang Power Plant. We have rooftop solar. Someone mentioned this in a meeting I was in the other week. We do have rooftop solar at our Shawnee and our North Oklahoma City service centers. We're a leader in renewable energy. We're the first and largest in the state in wind production. We're the first and largest in the state in solar production. Currently, we produce approximately 15% of our power from these renewables. We are a well-recognized utility. We have a long list of awards. Someone mentioned customer service. We are a customer service, J.D. Power customer satisfaction, 7 times ranked #1. We feel like we get that done in every city, not just Norman. Norman doesn't have to have a requirement on us. We do it for every customer in every city that we serve. We have some information about our 2020 plan, where we're reducing our emissions from all of our coal plants and all of our gas plants. We're constantly working to stay ahead of every regulation that comes down. You will never read about OGE and being in any violation of any of those type things. We have a compliance department that their job is to make sure we stay in compliance. The head of that group, John Ray, I believe lives here in Norman. He's the vice president for OGE. He's our compliance officer, and he's the Norman guy. He makes sure we stay in compliance. The picture that I put on the very last page is our OGE response to our Norman April 2012 tornado. The trucks that you see in that picture are not housed here in Norman, Oklahoma. Those trucks are in Fort Smith, Ardmore, Enid, Oklahoma. But when the problem hits Norman, Oklahoma, we bring everything we got. And if we don't have enough, we bring our friends. So Mayor Miller and to the City Council, I would like to submit the ordinance that's before you tonight in its current form, for your approval. And I thank you for your time. We're here to answer any questions that you have. I have Richard Julia, who's our tree person. We have John Coons, who does a lot of our community work. Randy Lewis is my supervisor. He's over all of our community affairs groups in OGE. We have a retiree, Mike Sheriff. His wife worked for the city for many years. Cheryl, some of you know her. Mike is responsible for all the contracts that were done for our wind generation facilities. He's retired now, but he went through all of that. I think he would be a good resource to the city if we are serious about getting into renewables and doing some things. I think Mike Sheriff might be, I'll say he's a good resource that we ought to tap his knowledge and his ability every chance we get. And I also want to say thank you again to all the other OGE retirees that came out. Any questions that we have, Mayor?
Councilmember Clark.
Sorry it takes so long.
That's all right. Councilmember Clark.
Mr. Chappell, that may be the longest I've ever heard you say. That was a lovely filibuster of sorts, and I don't think anyone would argue that OG&E is not a great community partner and gives back to our schools and our communities and organizations and things like that. My concern is 25 years. My concern is that you have the same agreement for every city in Oklahoma, and we are not like every city in Oklahoma. And my residents are not comfortable with 25 years, and I'm here to represent them. So for me to vote yes on this tonight, I need an answer to how we're going to work on that issue.
How we're gonna work on
25 years, making it shorter.
I'm not, we're putting forth the ordinance as for every agreement we have is 25 years. The other utilities, I think, Ms. Walker said, were 25-year agreements. It's kind of a standard thing for utilities to do this. Long-term investment, the equipment that we're talking about, even our energy efficiency programs, that's on a long-term basis. You know, we give money up front for customers to install energy efficient equipment. That helps us in the long term. We're not talking 5 years, we're talking about, well, that's gonna save us 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road. The investment that we make in our young people at our schools in 4th, 5th grade, we believe that that's gonna pay dividends for us 20, 25 years down the road.
That I won't question at all. My concern is that it's really hard to plan for 25 years when we don't know what the technology is going to look like 25 years from now. Look at the advancements we've made over the last 25 years. I think considering that, committing ourselves to 25 years of not knowing what we can do and not having, as Councilmember Wilson said, planning foresight and looking to the future could really hurt us. And people are concerned, and it's my job to listen to them. And if we don't want to negotiate 25 years, then I'm going to have a problem with passing this today.
Okay.
Councilman, do you have something else?
I will say that if, you know, going less than 25 also is a risk for that also, because it hesitates investment and things like that we need to make. You know, we just put a letter out, a commitment letter out that we were going to do some big work downtown Norman. We're ready to get that done. We're going to do that here, starting here in a few months, a few weeks, to get that done. And none of that's going to be small work. That's going to be major investment on part of OG&E, with the hope of us installing that and then being able to serve customers in Norman for long periods of time. My boss is on the edge of his seat. I don't know if he wants to say something. I'll let you say.
I'll interject a few comments. I'll interject first. I'm Randy Lewis. I work together with James. He's exactly right. When we do our planning, we're no different than the city of Norman. I mean, when you do your planning and you do your investment, you're looking for a long-term return. Same way with your water and sewer. You're not putting that in for a 5 to 10 year basis. You're doing that. You're using the best technology you have today and the best foresight and everything that you have today to put that in. We continue to be an industry leader in the renewables. That's not going to change. We're listening. We know what's going in. That's why we came to the city of Norman and rolled out our smart grid, because we knew what type of city you were. We knew what you wanted. We know you want LED. We're working to get LED here. We know you want better downtowns. We're investing in that infrastructure. And to not have 25 years, we would not be able to continue these kinds of programs, to invest in these kinds of things without a shorter term investment. So that's, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Councilmember Casper.
Mayor, I'm very concerned that you won't go short of 25 years. Or that you haven't come to the table negotiating other terms. So my duty is to represent, I understand why, from your standpoint, I understand why you don't want to do things and long-term plans, stuff like this, but I'm not on your side of the table, I'm on my side of the table. And so, given that, I feel that in order to get you to the table and negotiate with us, that I'd like to make a motion to postpone this agreement until we can negotiate a better deal. To October 10th, that would put this on a January ballot, which I think still gives you plenty of time to get this done. It won't interfere with any of our other elections that we have coming next year. and hopefully you'll negotiate better next 2 months, and if not, then we may not pass it at all. But, so anyway, I'd like to make that motion.
Is the motion to?
The motion is to-
Or or indefinite?
To a date certain of October 10th, which I believe, correct me, is that the proper date for the first reading?
Okay.
Brenda, whatever the date for the first reading, I believe it's October 10th.
Okay.
So it'll be,
That's what, second.
I know, but I want to post, okay,
He's talking about a date to get it on for a first reading, if,
it would be second reading, okay, so October 24th. So my motion would be to postpone this until October 24th.
do I have a second?
And I just got all, all the emails I got, comments I got from everybody was, don't rubber stamp this, postpone it till you get a better deal. And so I think that's what we're doing here, so that's the other reason is I think hopefully you'll come to, I do appreciate some of these things that you're doing for downtown, but I want to see them done first. I want more commitment than, if you guys pass this franchise agreement, we'll do the downtown stuff. So I'm hoping we can kind of negotiate good faith here over next month or so.
Okay, Councilmember, Hickman? Oh,
There's a chance for discussion on this, right?
right,
Yeah. So I,
right, that's what I was getting ready to do, only, do we not want to? Is this about the motion on the floor?
it is now. It wasn't the time I pushed it, but it is now. I don't want to lose my place in the
We have a
queue now.
motion on the floor, so the discussion is pertinent to the motion on the floor. So, Councilmember Hickman.
And I think OG had a comment, so I'm gonna ask a question. Is OG&E willing, yes sir, is OG&E willing to negotiate any material term of the franchise ordinance that's on the agenda tonight? So that we know whether or not we're wasting our time or not in delaying. I mean that, with all due respect, in the sense that there's no reason for us to delay this, and not send it to the people, or not, or to send it to the people if you guys aren't, and I don't wanna set you guys up in a situation where, if your position is gonna be the next 60 days, we told you that's it, and that's it. So, will you guys agree to any material changes to what's the franchise ordinance before us tonight?
I don't believe we're willing to if there's two items that I'm hearing about. One is 3% and one is for maybe 25 years. But 3% is not the item, it's just 25 years. I don't think that's up for negotiation, because that is, you sit here and heard what James went through, the millions of dollars investment. Our rates are set on a long term. If you followed our last rate case, matter of fact, they depreciated some of our assets all the way out to more than 100 years. That's how they're able to keep our rates low, is by those long-term schedules. And then we do the same thing when we go borrow money. We're looking at long-term payouts. When you all issue bonds, you're looking at long-term payouts for those investments. That's what we're doing here. And that's the purpose of the 25 years. It has nothing to do with if new technology comes out, we're not going to embrace it. We are. We have a history of doing that. So,
I understand that.
Yeah.
Ask you a quick follow-up question. In fairness, as long as the state law doesn't change and OG&E maintains its monopoly status, territorial status, whether we have a 1-year agreement, a 6-year agreement, a 600-year agreement, would you agree that
well, 600 is not allowed, but yes.
But you know what I mean?
By
As
statute.
long as the state law allows the territory monopoly status that we have currently, which it is what it is.
No different than the city.
I understand.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that in any judgmental way. Seriously.
I'm just looking at comparison.
My point is that it doesn't change the length of the term of the agreement doesn't really matter, in the sense of there's the protection that even if we had a 5-year agreement and the 5 years are up, we have nobody else who can provide us with the services, I guess is what I'm getting at. Wouldn't you agree with that?
That's probably a true statement, sir.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why I'm saying is, well, I understand the sensitivity on the length of the term from the investment standpoint. There is an additional protection in this kind of a relationship that maybe doesn't exist in a,
Yeah, I mean,
A
it
different
wouldn't be
kind of
showing,
contract.
it wouldn't be showing good faith to us that you didn't trust us. In all fairness,
no, I understand.
yeah.
Stephen, I'm sorry, Councilmember Coleman, and this is about the postponement.
Well, I was just gonna say the Ward 7's pretty quiet mostly. I don't get a lot of correspondence from our residents. But on this one, I've heard from Ward 7 residents, and overwhelmingly the concern is the 25-year issue. I mean, that is primarily the issue my residents have. In addition to what I've gathered from other council members, it's the 25-year term. And it's not necessarily that they don't trust OG&E and what you're doing, what you plan to do. It's just 25 years is seems to be really difficult for a lot of people to take in. And I mean, 25 years ago, I was 7 years old. So I'm now the second most senior member of the city council. So it's just a little difficult for people to wrap their head around and think they're locking into something like that. So, I mean, I don't know about postponing or maybe amendments and stuff, but that's the concern my residents have. Outright, too.
Councilmember Wilson.
Well, my topic of conversation has changed a couple times, but 25 years ago, I was Stephen's age. Start with that. 25 years is a long time, and I'm hearing from, to the tune of about 50 emails that I've received personally from my constituents, from people throughout the city, that 25 years is a long agreement. Now, I'm a business owner, I'm a doggy daycare lady, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that I would love to have a 10-year lease at my building. I would, because I'm making infrastructure improvements on my level, and I'd love to be able to ROI those out 10 years, I would. My landlord won't give me a 10-year agreement because there's a brand new fancy library going down around the corner, and that property might be worth more money in 5 years. So he says 5 years is what he would like to do, and that's how we negotiate. So I would like to put that and see.
I know what's gonna happen.
So anyways, I think 25 years is a long time. I think that we need to stay nimble as technology changes, and I'm concerned about being told what we can negotiate.
Councilmember Bierman.
So I also represent a somewhat sleepy ward most of the time, and I too have received a number of emails and Facebook messages and in-person conversations about this. And I did just want to ask anyone who's here to express their concern about the length of this agreement, can you please stand up? Because we've got a lot of people in this audience that we don't normally have this kind of a crowd. Thanks, everyone.
How many of you asked us to postpone?
And postpone it at least to get us a better deal. And to me, that is the most concerning part of this, is that at no point in this process, from the minute that this was brought to us, when it was told to us in the study session that it was just a pro forma administrative matter that we should just sign and get off of our plates, from that point on, we have been told that there is no negotiation here. And I'm not entirely sure that just by rejecting it now and pushing this off by a month or two, that we will get anywhere. I've read about some of the campaigns that have happened in other cities when they have simply talked about starting a municipal utility in the past. I've seen it happen with other companies when other cities in Oklahoma have tried to condemn and purchase natural gas infrastructure, as an example. I don't believe that postponement will necessarily get us what we're looking for. And what I don't want to do is just delay this and end up back in the same position that we're in now, with OG&E standing in front of us saying exactly what they will have said a month and a half earlier, which is, we don't negotiate. And from my perspective, we're here to do what our residents want. And right now, that's not what I'm seeing happen. And so I'm not even sure that I'm willing to vote for a postponement. I've got things I want to do here tonight.
we've had a request for a break, so,
I
we'll
think we
take
can
it
vote on
to-
this motion.
Yeah. It's time. Okay. Public comment. On the postponement. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I'm Mary Francis, 850C Cardinal Creek Condos, a member of Ward 7. Delighted to have my council member, Stephen Tyler Holman. We heard at length from Mr. Chappell, and one of the things he talked about was solar. And OG&E has solar power for themselves, but they want to kill the ability of Oklahomans to use rooftop solar. I guess maybe some of you know about
Mary Francis, we are talking about the postponement. It needs to be, it needs to pertain to the postponement of the item.
Okay, I'll save this statement for later. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask, how many people in the audience do we have that want to speak to the postponement? How many people want to speak to the postponement? Okay.
I would like to speak to the postponement.
That's fine, you may speak about the postponement.
And I don't see any use of doing a postponement. We just heard that there's not going to be any negotiation. They are stuck on their 25 years, and I don't see any reason to do a postponement. We need to discuss this tonight. A lot of people have shown up to express their opinion about the 25 years, and a postponement is not going to get us anywhere. And the representatives here essentially said the same thing.
Thank you.
Tracy Baker, 3000 Chautauqua Avenue, Unit 108. Regarding the issue of postponement on the current item at hand, I don't believe that a postponement is the best approach to this. I believe by flat out voting yes or no on the issue tonight, we can reject this all at once. And I think that if I was in OG&E's shoes and I had the third largest city in the state wanting to negotiate a contract that would be extremely profitable to them, by rejecting this item tonight, you'll open up a lot of room for an incentive to negotiate in the future. I don't think if I was OG&E that I'd refuse to negotiate if you flat out refuse this tonight.
Thank you.
Jim Jenkins, Ward 2, and I would just like to encourage this council to reject the postponement. To echo what Tracy said, OG&E has not shown any willingness to back off the 25-year requirement, and I find it very hard to believe that they would walk away from 47,000 OG&E customers by saying we're not going to negotiate. So I urge you all to vote against the postponement and get on with the discussion.
Andrew Sartain, 810 Joe McKay Terrace, and I would just like to echo what everybody else has said. I think there's a lot of good ideas on the table right now, and they should be exchanged tonight so everybody can hear them at the very least, so we know what types of options are there, and OG can actually answer in person whether or not they would be willing to even consider them. If not, then I think that we have a lot of things to look forward that aren't necessarily just black and white, but I think the postponement is not something we should do. I think we should discuss all these options. Thank you.
Travis Garland, 1848 West Robinson Street, Unit D, Ward 8 resident, and City of Norman Utilities Customer Service Representative. If there can be no negotiation with OG&E, there can be no postponement, there can be no approval of the ordinance. Thank you.
Council member questions? Do you have final questions? Don't see
Mayor,
any.
may I address the comments?
You may.
It's not that we're not willing to negotiate. We are willing to continue the conversation. The situation arises, though, is we incur costs with this election. So in that negotiation, would the city be willing to incur costs in a shorter term by hosting the election? I guess those are going to be kind of some of the discussions, because currently the way it is set up is we would be paying for this, and that cost is shared with our customers. So if the city would want something of a shorter term, there needs to be a lot more dialogue about that than just what we've had so far. We obviously didn't get all of the questions answered on the short term, on the long term versus short term. But there's a lot more mechanics involved in that, as well as cost. You all understand special election costs. And when we have 276 of these, we do it in a methodical way, we spread it out, and we share that cost over a time frame. And with us turning around doing this in a shorter time frame, would be bearing more cost to our customers, which would concern us. So it's not that we're not willing to negotiate, we're willing to discuss a shorter timeline, but then there's going to be give and take on both sides, I would hope.
I'm not sure that I'm understanding. Are you saying you don't want to have an election in January? You don't want?
Oh, we would love to have the election just as soon as possible. But what I'm saying is, we will bear the cost of that election, whether it be November, December, January. And if you're saying something of a shorter time frame, we would want to maybe open up discussion of who shares in that cost, because we'll be turning around and doing it in another shorter time frame, as opposed to 25 years, which is what we normally plan for.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Castleberry.
I appreciate you making my point. You're not willing to negotiate. So when you say they're not willing to negotiate, they just negotiate. One thing I would point out is that if the postponement doesn't pass, and that's fine, that's what we want to do, and we don't pass this, then these next items on our agenda are going to be about a special election, and we will incur the cost for that special election. So we're already on the hook for that. So you're not really giving me anything that I don't already potentially have. I just want to point out to the council members that if we don't pass this, we still have the charter amendments changes that we have to make. So we would incur all that cost, $25,000. $35,000 for that. But right now, they're willing to share us. We're talking about a 25-year agreement, so I'm not sure how material that cost really is. Again, this is not council approving or not approving the franchise agreement. We are approving whether to take it to a vote so that you guys can approve or not approve it. And my motion to postpone is basically asking if we can have 1 or maybe 2 more months to work out some of these details and see if we can get some of the stuff that we're getting. If they don't, then we'll come back here and we can vote it up or down. But I think this is too important to just not negotiate. And I find it ironic that everybody that understands they won't negotiate, they just did. You know why? Because we forced them to. We can play hardball too. I hate to say that because it's not very good negotiation tactics to tell people that you're negotiating tactics, but it is what it is. And so I would ask that we actually postpone this. I think it puts the city in a better position, and I'll just leave it at that.
Councilmember Wilson.
Well, I'm $35,000 for I just want a clarification really. It's $35,000 for a special election. We are already holding, kind of reiterating what Councilmember Castleberry said, we're already holding a special election in November. I think it behooves the city to maybe incur the cost to have a good agreement that is beneficial and also beneficial to the city and also what our constituents are asking. And I think the negotiation moment came when we all shook our head no and everybody out there said we want to not postpone that.
Bierman.
You know, I might have a different threshold for what constitutes negotiation than what's happened here so far. But you know, I feel like this process has been very trying right from the very beginning, and I think our constituents deserve action. And as I've said previously, I'm not sure that a postponement will actually yield the kind of results that our constituents are looking for. But on that note, I'm ready to call the question and vote on postponement.
I'll second that. Did you second it? Motion on the floor is to postpone. You may cast your votes.
The motion on the floor is to postpone the item until October 24th. That motion fails by a vote of 4 to 5. Voting against postponement, Councilmember Holman, Councilmember Cardula, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Bierman, Councilmember Hickman.
We're back to the motion on the floor. At this time, we will take comments from the audience. Oh, okay. Now I'm going to ask again. We have somebody who would like a break. I'm sorry you all didn't hear that. We're taking a break. We'll be a 10-minute break.